Well, it's time for me to record, and my cats are doing like WWE SmackDown behind me on the floor. So if any weird sounds happen, it's not me. It's Poe and Percy just going wild. Hello, folks. Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU, here for another Legacy video. In this post-ban world, a lot of people are trying to do fun things. I am trying to stop all of the fun today. Edison has asked me to put together a Clarion Conqueror prison deck, and we've had mixed results with this. Clarion Conqueror, even though it is a really powerful card, is really hard to put into decks. You can't really play it with artifact mana, or planeswalkers, or creatures with activated abilities, which kind of just means that you need to play it fairly on turn 3 a lot of the time, or have Ancient Tomb mana in your deck. We are going to attempt to stop all of this clue Planeswalker Tameo nonsense with both Suppression Field and Clarion Conqueror. Conceptually, this deck wants to be a Chalice of the Void deck, but I think you just need to have some good turn 1 plays of your own in Legacy right now. And if I'm trying to build this deck without just dipping into Chalice of the Void and a bunch of artifact mana that's gonna get shut off anyway, I think Ocelot Pride, oh, there they go, and Guide of Souls is going to be the way to do that. Now, Ajani is multiple bodies for Guide of Souls, which I think is something that we need. As a reminder, Ajani's transform into a Planeswalker is a May ability. So I am playing this as something that has two separate bodies that very rarely we might transform it and have some red creatures from Voice of Victory and dome our opponent to the face, but I am just intending this as an extra body for Guide of Souls. Velia was another thing that I considered for this deck, but a lot of the things that I wanted to blink weren't playing well with the rest of the deck. So we are going to have a ton of hate bears for these combo matchups. Between the main deck and sideboard, I'm going to kind of overload on fair removal. And you know what? Maybe it's time to bring back Rest in Peace. Maybe we just get to play 4x Rest in Peace in post sideboard configurations, and that'll be fun for everyone involved. I mean, me. It'll be fun for me. Now, because we can't do fetch lands, we are playing a pile of basic planes. While a couple of fetch lands in this sort of deck would normally be reasonable, this is just straight up, we are playing a ton of basic planes because of Suppression Field. And we do have some activated abilities floating around the deck, but very few of them relative to the average Legacy deck. So here's our 0 fun prison. This one is totally untested. The numbers look okay on paper. Let's see how it does in practice. Folks, if you need any cards for the new metagame, please consider getting them from my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. They're awesome. They have treated me well. Use promo code ThrabenU to save a little bit on your order. You always get free shipping as well. Alrighty, let's battle. Even in a monocolored mana base, sometimes the mana does not work out. Oh, it looks like some of my defaults got shifted around here. Magic Online just updated, by the way. Yeah, this is totally fine. Am I on the draw here? I am on the draw. I think I'm going to be a little greedy and throw back Basic Plains number 3. Oh, we've got Ancient Tomb into Grim Monolith. I'm glad we have this Suppression Field, but I probably am not going to be able to use Swords to Plowshares in the first turn cycle here. Pretty much just a Glaring Fleshraker that it would hit. There's the One Ring. It begins. And that's a key that'll get to untap either the ring or the monolith. I assume... Oh, I assumed wrong. Alright. Oh, another one. Alright. So, this doesn't fully shut off the abilities, but it does make them more expensive. We'll see how much damage I can cause my opponent to do to themselves between Ancient Tomb and the One Ring this game before I even put a creature into play. Alright, so that's 2 life to activate the One Ring for 2 cards. A lot of mana. Okay, that's a Glaring Flushraker. I would love to remove that in just a minute. I would really like to draw another land to be able to Suppression Field again and Swords to Plowshares all at the same time. That sounds pretty good to me. And we hit. Very nice. So I will Swords a Glaring Flushraker and throw down a Suppression Field. That makes all of this way clunkier, and then I can get an Archon into play and make things even more awkward. But my opponent still has... Fuck. No. No. That's devastating. We were pretty good versus the One Ring. The Ugin, though, that is a bit over the top of what I was expecting to be stopping here. Also a Karn. I lose the other Suppression Field. At this point, I think I just toss in the towel. We are handily dispatched, and it's not close. And once the Ugin is in play, like, even casting something like a Clarion Conqueror afterwards may not actually be good enough. Alright. We can consider you. I think I maybe go down on these. They seem to be the least necessary. And then do I want Deafening Silence? It's fine. I think I want to keep a high enough creature density that I'm not gonna do that when I'm on the play. And I might think about it when I'm on the draw. This is Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride. I don't think I keep this one on 7. This is totally fine and good. I'm probably going to keep this and get rid of the Swords to Plowshares, as it is the most situational card in my hand. I honestly could also see this one be just get rid of Ocelot Pride and skip out on the 1-power scaling attacker. There's Grim Monolith and Voltaic Key. Untapping the Monolith. That's a Tezzeret Cruel Captain. Opponent is tutoring, getting another key for that Grim Monolith. That puts Tezzeret back up to 2 loyalty. So I'll go ahead and throw down a Suppression Field, go to Punchies, Tezzeret, and start making some cats. There's a Planar Nexus. So it looks like opponent is activating a key, which is just mana neutral. They're not doing that anymore. It costs them all 3 of their current mana to untap a Grim Monolith for the following turn. They are going to do it. So they use 2 mana to activate Tezzeret and untap Grim Monolith so that they can go and cast a Karn. But now they don't have mana to activate the Karn. So hopefully that means that I get to kill Tezzeret while poking Karn and throwing down a second Suppression Field. Okay, yep. So this is really cool. It's not online unless I use my entire turn to do it. And I think it is just better to throw down another Suppression Field. So that one finishes off Tezzeret, and that one pokes a Karn. And I will gain my 1 to make my cat. We're losing some life. There's a Glaring Flushraker. I don't have the swords that I'm representing. I'm going to go ahead and play out this Voice of Victory. That can safely attack into Glaring Flushraker on future turns. But I think I am just passing the turn here. Another land drop. Opponent now can do 4 mana to activate Karn. A Tezzeret Cruel Captain comes down. It would cost you 4 to activate, so I don't think you're doing anything else. Hell yeah, the Clarion Conqueror. Face. Mobilize 2. Yeah, just going to face. Opponent takes a little bit of damage here. I get to throw down one of these bad boys. Now everything's just off. I'll lose these warriors. I'll get them back next turn. That's not that big of a deal. And my opponent can make some more spawn blockers. Note that the Eldrazi spawns are not currently on. So my opponent does not have enough mana to actually use a Kozilek's command to get rid of Clarion Conqueror. Which we can see there, they have to do it for x equals 2. The Clarion Conqueror is still going to be a 2-turn clock. Wow, they went 2 top. That's crazy. Go to Punchies. Punchies, your face. for half of your life total. You go to 3, and then I will activate a Wasteland, targeting the thing that taps for 2 mana, I think, even though it hurts them. Urza's Workshop. Urza's Workshop and Call Against Command being the top 2 cards is a way that Clarion Conqueror can go away. And that is indeed what happened. Now I'd like to draw just any land so that I can Wasteland the Urza's Workshop. I'll take that too. That is also acceptable. It is kind of crazy how much it is taking to actually set my opponent back a meaningful amount. So that is a turn of Fog. Even if the activated abilities aren't fine, everything else there works. Got 5 mana. What can you activate? I don't think you can activate anything with Clarion Conqueror in play. Okay. So there's a Guide of Souls. There's a Voice of Victory. Let's just go ahead and yield to that. Now my opponent has protection from everything, but these don't. So let's send in at a Karn, so a Karn can't tutor. I don't have enough energy to put counters with Guide of Souls this turn. And I do get to start making cats. And there's finally the concession. My opponent was still competitive through 2 Suppression fields and a Clarion Conqueror. It wasn't until that second Clarion Conqueror came down that we actually had solidified the game. So now when I'm on the draw, do I want the Deafening Silences? When we get to those endgame scenarios, I want every card to look like these. I think if I'm playing 3 Deafening Silences, they come at the cost of these. I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm going to get rid of some Ocelot Prides. I think this is an unexciting hand that is a keep. I have good plays for turn 2 and turn 3. And maybe sometimes we get to snipe a Glaring Fleshraker in the first turn cycle. Although I don't really expect that to happen. Lotus Petal. Okay, opponent is just passing. I will pass right back. Planar Nexus comes down. Okay, cool. This is really how I wanted to draw it up. So I'll swords that. Ooh, do I... Sometimes I do this, my opponent drops a Tron land, and they still just have 4 mana next turn. I think I'll just Anointed Peacekeeper here. Let's see what's going on. Well, 2, 3, 6, and 7. That's just Ugin. Alright, I guess we're naming Ugin to get through the next turn cycle. And then we'll have some wastelanding to do. So there's Tower. Planar Nexus is the best land over there. It has synergy with the various Urza lands. I think I am just taking out Planar Nexus in an attempt to make Tower worse, while also like taking off some colored mana and whatnot. I think I'm going to go ahead and wasteland the Nexus immediately. Go through combat here. Send in for 3. Opponent's at 17. Then we'll do this again. Okay, yeah, so there's an Urza's Workshop. So my opponent has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 2 turns from now. I think I'm just naming Ugin again. Weird game. And I think I just beat down through the Urza Saga token easily enough. Unless that happens. That's tragic. So I can take out the Urza Saga so my opponent doesn't make constructs. And do Voice of Victory. We'll attack out of spite. Opponent gets to fog 6 damage there. Very, very strong, obviously. Opponent has 7 cards in hand. That's way different from the just Ugin situation we were in a minute ago. Let's see how disgusting this ends up being. Opponent does have Metalcraft. They have 2 Urza lands. And I have 3 dead cards in hand. Now I have crazy Haymakers off the top, and a lot of damage in play. But I am very scared. Alright, something's happening. It is another One Ring to fog yet again. Super healthy play patterns. A Deafening Silence is what it is. Worth something. Again, we will continue to attack out of raw spite. And our tokens go away. Opponent loses more to the One Ring. And then gets to draw more cards. Towers aren't online. But the Urza's Workshop is getting scary. I think it's very realistic that my opponent gets to cast an Ugin next turn. I think they just figured out they can't do it this turn. Are we dismembering, maybe? I'm seeing some more life loss. That is a Kozilek's command. So that's my opponent's one spell for this turn. Unless they have a Glaring Fleshraker. Does not seem like they do. There's another Voice of Victory. Turns kind of play themselves at this point, unfortunately. And I suspect that my opponent just casts an Ugin next turn and then totally overpowers me. They can just go Ugin, get rid of Deafening Silence, and then go from there. However, there is an Ancient Tomb and a One Ring in play, so we'll see. So there's 9 for the Ugin, taking out the Deafening Silence. That'll allow my opponent to cast other spells. So they sacrifice some spawns to activate Ugin for mana. There's a Glaring Fleshraker. That takes out the Peacekeeper. There's got to be more. Here's the One Ring draws. Not lethal next turn. They're taking 3 of their 4 life points. But this does mean that they have to stop both copies of Voice of Victory. And there's one. And there's the other. From here, I suspect that my opponent wins. Top decking something like a Clarion Conqueror could be big game, though. Oh, they're continuing to go with the One Ring. Yes, please. Now there is a chance that they can kill themselves with their One Ring, and there wasn't a chance of that happening a second ago. Obviously, they will just play another One Ring. Otherwise, like, there's no way that you would take that line, right? They've easily got the mana to do it. I'll take some more chip damage from Glaring Fleshraker. Oh, we're going. I could die this turn, I guess. Opponent either needs to kill me or remove the One Ring, or they have killed themselves. There's another One Ring. Now I'm probably dead unless the top card of my library is Clarion Conqueror. I might even die now. Okay, they took some game actions and undid them. Here we go, Clarion Conqueror. I don't even know if Clarion Conqueror is enough with the Ugin sitting in play, though. That certainly won't be enough. Alright, I will concede there. So that is a loss through Wasteland, Wasteland, Deafening Silence, Double Anointed Peacekeeper. GG. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com. If you're looking to store your decks online, you're not going to find a better website. It's super organized and easy to use, and I sort everything that I do into a ton of format-specific folders, and you can customize the way that you use Moxfield to your liking. Whether you like text views or visual views of multiple different natures, Moxfield has it all. And it's so easy to use, you might even say that it's a snap. Okay, my opening hand here simply does not have enough mana. I'm going to mulligan this one. This is much better. I don't have any synergy with the Ocelot Pride and the rest of the hand here. I think I'm just going to get rid of this and hope that I can cast Swords to Plowshares in the first turn cycle. Windswept Heath? Decent chance I can Swords. Yes. As a reminder, this one is activated abilities cost 2 more unless they're mana abilities, and this one is straight up nope. So we are going to go ahead and take the speed bump here. Raucous. Are we playing against some honest-to-goodness Maverick-style magic? Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. Thalia was something else I considered for this deck. Initial drafts were floating around like Thalias and Leonin Arbiters and Ghost Quarters and stuff before I settled on the current build. That Wasteland is incredibly good. Sorcery Speed Felia because of Voice of Victory. Okay, makes sense. So my attack in is not good, and I can't play Suppression Field. Don't love it. So I'm passing the turn here. I think I'm going to fall behind. Like, it is very possible for my opponent to drop what would be a good thing to blink. Solitude probably doesn't work with the timing, like a Stoneforge or an Ajani or something. Okay, no attacks from the opponent, but then I don't get to do anything back, so I'm chilling in limbo here. Opponent could theoretically have a flash creature or something, but they don't. I guess they can't have the flash creature because of Voice of Victory, right? Let's see where this takes us. That is a Keen-Eyed Curator. That will soon be a 7/7 unless... now, Thalia attacks means that I can't play that immediately. We are gonna awkwardly stare at each other for a little while longer. Oh, Opponent did not exile cards from graveyards there. I'll take that. That attack is fine. Boy, do I have 3 drops. Okay. Opponent is missing their Keen-Eyed Curator stuff, which I am very thankful for. It does need to be 4 or more card types, which we're not anywhere close to right now. So there's that. Another Wasteland and an Ice Till Explorer. That means that my opponent gets to mill a ton of things. They're going to have Wastelands for days. Is not ideal for me. Shit. I think it is not going to matter that my opponent is missing some things like Keen-Eyed Curator activations. I think I am just not going to play Magic here. Like, now there is just land instant sorcery already, and they can probably get another card type in there to round out with Keen-Eyed Curator. Yeah, there's Creature. Seems good. Alright. Now they figured it out. I'm just going to let them do that. So a couple mana later, this is half of my life total. Now I do hit the land. Do I realistically win from this board enough of the time that it is worth continuing to play the game and show my opponent more cards? I think it is. I think I can Skyclave this and stall the board. Now, the problem here is that my opponent just gets to wasteland me off of this land, and then I am right back in the I can't actually cast spells phase of the game again. Just a tip for those of you playing along at home, in situations like what my opponent was just in, where this land is already tapped, there's very little reason to wasteland until your own turn. Sometimes you find that you end up needing that mana, and Green Sun decks can often require a bunch of mana. Like a Green Sun for a 3 or 4 with a Thalia in play is pretty intensive. Ooh, Felia is coming in. They're going to blink out a Voice of Victory. Am I fine giving my opponent a 2/2 and having them lose Felia? Yes. Yes, I think I am. But this may be the illusion of choice. Oh, no, it is not. Okay, cool. I get my Voice of Victory back. Okay, cool. There is another basic land. Suppression Field, Archon, Anointed Peacekeeper. My opponent has so many cards. They're not using them. Why? I suppose let's find out. Okay. And then they opted not to play a Felia on their own turn? Does making Felia cost 4 mana even matter? I'm not really sure if that matters. I don't know that naming Wasteland matters much. My opponent has 3 different fetch lands. I don't know that that matters much. I think I will go ahead and name Felia. Very strange here. So my opponent can keep playing these lands. Dryad Arbor is an annoying one. That can just keep coming back as a blocker. Okay, there is Felia. I've got a basic plains. Time to name Caracas with the other one of these. My opponent missed Caracas bounce before, or didn't need to do it. Alright, still all Felias. Let's shut off Caracas and pass turn. Lands and lands and lands and lands. Renegade Rallier is good value. At some point, my opponent will run out of fetchables. See when that process happens. Still hitting the land drops, obviously. And passing the turn. Fantastic. So there's a good chance that I can play more than one spell in the not too distant future. So I don't think I play Archon immediately. Let's go ahead and do Clarion Conqueror. And we'll pass here. If I hit another land drop, I can play a Suppression Field, then an Archon. There's my opponent's own Voice of Victory. I'm not too worried about that unless my opponent goes wide and kills me in a single combat step, which is looking unlikely, but not impossible. Okay, cool. So Thalia attacks 1, 2, 3. There's a Suppression Field. My opponent wants to fetch. There's their opportunity. Nope. And I think I will go ahead and do this one. So they have 6 attackers. If I attack and one of my things get blinked out, I have 4 blockers versus a bunch of stuff. It's 4 blockers versus 8 creatures. I think I'm not attacking. I am unsure whether this game going longer is favoring me or not. My opponent just has not drawn any reasonable cards. That is a scary one. I might need to turn creatures sideways from here. All of my creatures are white. I will just die in a couple of attack steps to that. And my opponent can certainly pay the mana to activate. So here is to hoping that my opponent is not great at combat math, and that I get to clock them into more attack steps and they don't just like turn a bunch of stuff sideways into turn me instead. All right, a relatively conservative attack. Oh, right. Forgot about Clarion Conqueror. Mom is not online until that is out of play fully. Then my opponent can pay 4 mana to give it pro white and force the damage through. Seems good. I'll go to 5. I suspect that I'm going to need another creature off the top to stay in this game. Opponent just discovered that their fetches are no longer free. There's a land drop, trigger. At some point they milled over Guide of Souls in there, so that's in the deck too. Not overly surprising. There's a Green Sun, or 2 for a Hierarch. I get the Clarion Conqueror back. Okay. Can I, in any world, kill? I Swords Noble Hierarch. My opponent has 4 blockers. All of my creatures on the ground get blocked. I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. Check that again. So you get swordsed. 4 ground blockers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. How many things die if that happens? Thalia dies, and and 2 other creatures die. Thalia and 2 2-power creatures die, leaving my opponent with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage for the following turn cycle, assuming I deal blocks. But I have 2 vigilance creatures, and neither is going to die in combat. There are also timelines where I don't Swords Noble Hierarch, and I attack with everything. In those timelines, my opponent can do something like block, block. These are out of the picture. It's 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 in the air, so everything else just needs to be normal blocked. I might like that better. Mom can't activate anyway. Yeah, if I'm not killing anyway, let's make my opponent make all of their blocks and then try to swords out of this. There's so many permutations for how this could go down. So, math is for blockers. You figure it out. That's 10 damage coming through. That's 8 damage coming through, and none of my anointed peacekeepers die. So you're dead, you're dead. These bounce, these bounce. If I get rid of the Voice of Victory now, I'm not saving an extra creature. It's just the thing that has the most power for the next turn. Although removing Felia might be better. I guess I can go to the next phase. None of my stuff is dying. So if I remove Felia, I block 2 creatures. I remove Felia, I block 2 creatures and take lethal. What if I remove Voice of Victory? Block 1 creature and take lethal? Shoot, does this not work out? I have to do it now. Yeah, removing Noble Hierarch caused another creature to die. I should have done that. I think I do this one, because it represents that I can cast something on my opponent's turn, and I don't do this to represent that I have another spell. I think they have to go for it anyway. I think my initial inclination to go for the Noble Hierarch was right, and I messed up. Yeah, so they're just shoving. They blink one of these out. I block one and take exactly 5. So if I swords the Noble Hierarch, I take out 1 more creature in combat. Yeah, I think I messed that up. All right, let's get some extra removal in here. I think things that aren't bodies just go here, even though Suppression Field has a reasonable amount of text. And do something like that. The Thalia early on in that game was surprisingly good against us. Is slightly awkward. I think I keep it. I don't really want to cast this path in this matchup early on. My opponent is good at using the extra mana in a way that a lot of other decks in Legacy might not be, and they're going to have the basics. Wooded Foothills into a Dryad Arbor, which is fine. We're not going to path that, obviously. At Friend. Without another white pip, I can't multi-spell. I think I'm just going to get Anointed Peacekeeper in there now. We'll name Swords. My opponent's hand is unfortunately just more efficient than mine here. They're going to be able to do things like Voice and Mom in one turn, whereas I can only do one spell. For sure. Okay, so there's Renegade Rallier. Gonna get that value, and then presumably play Mom. And yes, that is the case. So this is a case where having these colorless lands is a big downside, because if I could get rid of Mom and play Archon in the same turn, this is like totally fine. But I can't do that, so this turn is rough for me. I still think, I don't know, does my opponent end up just activating this to force damage through this creature? Probably just end up swordsing this. I'm not going to remove Mom. I think I'm in bad shape, and I think I just need to take other game actions here that will potentially slow down my opponent. This Mom getting active is very bad. I won't block here, but I can in a future turn and then force the Mom activation. But the path can get a little weird with Voice of Victory, which has happened. Alright. Yeah. I fucked up. Supposed to do this post-combat. Let's stay aggressive here. If I do this attack pre-combat, I get 3 points of damage in most of the time. Now my opponent can just block with Mom and protect, whereas they would not have done that if I didn't play my creature first. If I lose this game by 3 points of damage, it is my fault. Opponent to 15. And then, like, I can remove the Mom this turn, and then, like, a Voice of Victory on a future turn. That's my opponent's one spell, so there's no mid-combat Swords to Plowshares here, although they can do it on my turn still. Alright, opponent choosing no attacks, which is probably favorable for me. So I would like to get this Mother of Runes tapped so that path works. Swords to Plowshares is live at 3 mana. Send it, send it, send it, I think is how we're going to do that. Sometimes this prompts Swords on Ajani. I could also just hold this one back and just go in with these two and leave this back defensively. The flying is the problem. We're not quite there, but we're going to be close. But this block and then Swords does not result in Mom tapping. Alright, let's see if these just outright trade or if my opponent is going to protect. Alright, they are going to protect. I think that just occurs. But then I get to path Mom immediately. You can take out Ajani, that's fine. And then I decide which of these creatures I think is the scariest. I don't get to path it right now because of Archon, and I don't get to path it on their turn because of Voice of Victory. And I may end up getting a better target to remove via that Green Sun. So creatures are crashing in. I'm fine trading with Renegade Rallier, I think. I'll take 3 damage, and then we'll see if I can stabilize with the 2 removal spells I have. 2 Ancient Tombs here is rough. Green Sun for 4 is probably that Ice Till Explorer again. I guess I'm thankful that it's not like a questing beast. And there's that Dryad Arbor coming back. That's worth another energy. I guess if my opponent had done that pre-combat, they end up with way more damage. Well, there's Starfield Shepherds in there too. Okay. Not being able to multi-spell across 2 turns is backbreaking here. Kaido Souls is the scariest. That gives the flying. Okay. Let's dismiss that. This Archon Emeria Voice of Victory thing is awful for me. Alright, and that'll mill another card, and again I don't get to play Ocelot Pride. My deck just does not have good top end compared to my opponent's deck, because I am trying to keep up with the Mystic Forge deck by playing all these hatebears. And my opponent is not trying to do that. So they are out mid-ranging me handily. See what else they can do here. I think if they put another creature into play, I'm just donezo. Renegade Rallier, sure. I think at this point I don't come back from that. None of those over there are legendary right now, so I can, like, block a creature, gain 1 life. Effectively, I'm at 6. I think that is the point where I'm dead. Like I can Skyclave and try to keep going for a little while longer, but this is just not going my way. GG. All right. Opening hand has Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls and is very functional off of 1 mana. I'm also on the draw. I get some looks at extra lands. I think I'll keep. I really do need the mana. All right. We're doing this again. Now, if I miss my land drops, I don't get to Clarion Conqueror. If I hit my land drops, or especially if I happen to just rip an Ancient Tomb, that 4 in 52 chance, I'm in good shape. But my opponent can throw down their 4-drop here, and there's a ring. So, it begins. Alright, I have great cards and no mana to deploy them. Does not bode well for me. I will get an extra cat at the end of turn. I suspect that if I miss my next land drop and don't deploy Suppression Field, that I just outright lose the game. That's rough. Opponent jumps to 6 mana this turn. Ooh, blue. Getting a stock up? We are getting a stock up. That means there's counter spells in this version, probably as well as some blockers such as Thundertrap Trainer. And what is it? Tishana's Tidebinder, Tishana's Tidebender, whatever that card is actually called. Yeah, opponent will take some damage here. And we are definitely doing the Suppression Field over just trying to play pre-combat Ajani and force some extra damage. I just need to slow my opponent down. I never need to play another threat the rest of the game unless my opponent does something like the Sweeper artifact, Karn Silex. Then things could get a little tricky. Up to 4 mana. Probably more stock up. Oh, fuck, it's a show and tell. The fuck are you putting in? This is unexpected. If it's just an Eldrazi, it doesn't matter what I put in. Are you going to Omniscience me? I think I'm gonna Archon. Oh, they did Omniscience me. Figured it out. So, my opponent cast their spell. They can cast stuff for free on my turn. I'm attacking for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus 3, 11. Combat. Yeah. Trigger. Let's say yes on Ocelot Pride. The opponent goes to 9, and then 4. Opponent gets 1 spell. I think I've clearly got lethal next turn. I'm going to hold up Swords to Plowshares on the off chance that that is relevant. Get my extra life. So that's just a free brainstorm to get around the Archon once per turn restriction. Opponent goes to 1, which shuts off Ancient Tomb as a land unless my opponent plays another 1 ring. They've got 8 cards in hand and effectively another 4. So that's a good 1 spell to do. So now it's my turn. Are we doing this again? Or am I holding up Swords again? I think I'm doing this. There's a very good chance that this eats a free Force of Will or Force of Negation, and my opponent doesn't need to pitch cast that. If they have a Brainstorm or equivalent to cast here, they do. So, 1 ring with 0 counters, obviously. That's an Atraxa. There's 10 cards. Ah, a very healthy Tameo 1-ring deck. Checks out. So the Force of Will is a problem. I'm going to need my opponent to cast some spell so that I can Swords Atraxa. Relevantly, there's a Kozilek's Command, a Tameo, and a Force of Will over there. So, I don't think I can cast any spells. I think if I cast a spell... Okay, hold on. If I cast Ajani, and I hypothetically attack in, my opponent blocks... Kozilek's Command also just fucks with this. Yeah, I don't think I can cast a spell. I think I'm just passing the turn, hoping to Swords Atraxa. My opponent should not cast Kozilek's Command at end of turn. They should just go to their own turn and attack with Atraxa. I think I'm playing towards them, misplaying here. Yes! So they target that. While this is still in play, I take out the Atraxa. That is a problem solved. Now, My opponent has 6 cards in hand with the ability to activate a One Ring and a Kozilek's command that is scrying them relatively deep. This is still bad for me. Secondary Omniscience. And now my opponent gets to start churning through things with stock up. There's the Tamiyo. We know Kozilek's command is gone, obviously. Fuck. Yeah. That Portent of Calamity as well. I think this is now the I don't win stage of the game. Oh, they found room for Cunning Wish in here too? Wild. My opponent is not actually all that great at producing blue mana. Alright, I will concede to that. Ugh, we're so close on that one. So, Deafening Silence is good here. I will probably take out swords and turn them into paths. Pathing an Atraxa that's in play is way better than swordsing it. I guess swordsing a Tamiyo is way better than pathing a Tamiyo, though. Get some Skyclaves in here. I think despite the fact that my opponent is a one-ring deck, I don't know if I actually play Suppression Field. I guess it also works on the clues. Yeah, okay, I think I've changed my mind. Opponent says, I'm trying to play all the cards they should have banned. I can see that. I guess I can also think about these. Let's take out some generic threats here. What else goes? I have a bunch of reasonable things here. Let's just sort this by mana value. Maybe I don't Null Rod. Keep things attached to bodies. And I'll just trim one random low-end threat. That has no mana. I'll mulligan that one. This is fine. Let's throw that away. If my opponent plays Tamiyo on one, I would love to bounce it later. But I think I'm just going to prevent them from just fully playing a Tamiyo on one. Then I can tap out on 2 or wasteland them while still holding up a Karakas. And I think I will be aggressively attacking blue mana in this deck. Ooh. Playing that is probably better than wastelanding my opponent. Because this is a wasteland, metaphorically speaking, for their next land if this does not eat Force of Will. But it does. Pitching a Tamiyo. Tamiyo that is not good because of the Karakas. There's Ancient Tomb. So, I think blue mana is often going to be a bottleneck here. So I think I'm going to go in on blue mana rather than amount of mana. Fucking Tidebind me. No. Kozilek's command for 1. Cunning Wish? What are we doing? Kozilek's command. I think I'm gonna loop down the Archon. Should make it pretty hard to do most things next turn. And Clarion Conqueror can shut off Eldrazi spawn, and Anointed Peacekeeper can do Anointed Peacekeeper things. Basic Plains, Punchies, 15. Untapped blue source is very unlikely. I don't think I'm going to play around untapped blue source directly into show and tell this turn. I think I'm going to use Clarion Conqueror to shut off the Eldrazi spawn and the One Ring. Okay, opponent is just passing the turn. That is great for me. I've got 5 damage in the air. I think I leave Karakas up to just Anointed Peacekeeper here. This might be the concession point. That is another Kozilek's command. It's cycling, and it's technically making blockers for later, but that's not really what my opponent wants. And there is the concession. We'll move to a game 3. Am I good with how I've boarded? I think I'm good with how I've boarded. Yeah, I am totally fine with this. I'm not great versus a turn 1 Tamiyo here, though. Okay, looks like I've dodged that. I don't get to wasteland on turn 1. Ooh. If I'm doing this turn 2, do I still want to do that? If I do this turn, I could wasteland and Guide of Souls next turn. Plus, sometimes this also just eats a Force of Will. So I think you can often let cards that look like this resolve and just say, I will win later. If I show and tell and put in the Omniscience, it's usually good enough. Opponent keeps their card on top with the Surveil. There's Ancient Tomb. There's Show and Tell. I'll put in a creature. So you don't get another spell right now. What's my follow-up? Clarion Conqueror physically has more power and toughness. I'm going to go for variety. And I should technically attack first. I don't fact that it matters in this instance. Oh shit. Eldrazi Confluence. Okay. There's a reason why it would matter in this instance. Although my opponent would have just taken 2. I mean, I still should have done it, but the cards still would have gotten me, is what I am getting at. And Deafening Silence means that my opponent can still play an Atraxa or an Emrakul or whatever if they find it. Urza's Tower comes down. The land's not super relevant here. So I can play 2 creature spells. So I will Guide of Souls, probably into Archon. That's a Force of Will. Yep. I think at some point my opponent draws a big X card, casts it with their mana, and then omnisciences their way to victory. That is Portent of Calamity for 7. So there's my opponent's Emrakul, and we will very, very much concede to that. Our deck that is geared to beat the One Ring is not beating the One Ring. GG. Okay, getting situated here. Grab that deck list from my previous opponent. Yikes. That is no white sources in 3 hands. Okay. Well, for a 4-card hand, you could do a lot worse. Bam, bam, bam. And my player draw here. I am on the draw. Once upon a time, for a Catacombs, and then just passing the turn here. My hand plays itself. There's probably going to be 0 brain power on my end in this game. I play Ocelot Prides and pray. Let's see what my opponent's up to. Could be something in the Dark Depths ballpark. Could be something in the Cradle Control ballpark. Could be Maverick. Yeah, potentially just Maverick again. I really wanted to hit another land there to be able to do 2 Ocelot Prides at the same time, but we'll take this. Again, we're on a 4-card hand. We'll take whatever we can get. 22. Spiking the land there to do double Ocelot Pride that turn while it was guaranteed would have been a big deal. Swords is very good here. I don't want to see Swords to Plowshares on my Guide of Souls in response to this trigger, and I don't. That's fantastic. So, yeah, I can attack here. I think it's pretty likely that my opponent has an Endurance. The only thing that lives through Endurance is this one. I think that means I attack with this one, despite the fact that this is the one that I want to endanger in combat the least. But I think I am playing around Endurance here. Alright, my opponent takes that. I'm going to make some cats. Is Orcish Bowmasters instead. This could have been done at a different part of the turn before that Ocelot Pride trigger went on the stack. I guess I'm thankful that it didn't. Another Bowmasters is pretty bad for me. I need some more land here. Oh, I will trade bodies all fucking day. All day. Alright. 22. I need to hit a land drop to floop down Ajani, probably. I miss. Sending this in. I'll hold back the cat. I don't think my opponent would block. I think they would just take 1 more damage. Opponent not fetching to Surveil, or not using mana for Keen-Eyed Curator. That's bad. I'm gonna end up swordsing Keen-Eyed Curator. Yeah. I will trade bodies all day. All day. Like, if you got a Renegade Rallier or whatever, you got a Renegade Rallier or whatever. There's a Knight of the Reliquary. Sure. No brains. Just smash. Mathematically speaking, I don't think I win this race. I will take 5. Could be taking 6. Gaddock Teague? Wild. I can play this and wasteland 2 of my opponent's lands and increase the amount of damage that I take. I think I'm just going to concede here. I think they've got it at this point. I mean, I mulligan to 4. That just kind of is what it is. And we're going to go up on removal spells and maybe play some of these, but definitely not 4 of them. The flyers break the board stalls, which are important. The removal matters a lot. Suppression field definitely does stuff, but I don't know that it's going to be worth a card. Removals and flyers and token producers. Maybe we don't do that. And we trim 2 cats or something. Could also get rid of Ocelot Pride in the face of Orcish Bowmasters. think it's reasonable to play like 2 Rest in Peace. I'm gonna try to keep a couple of these as potential planeswalkers, boarding them in along. Okay. I don't love it. I think I just accept it. Maybe it's now my opponent's turn to not play Magic. Opponent went to 5, not 4. Windswept Heath and pass the turn. If I don't get to just wasteland them immediately, I will throw down Swords to Plowshares bait instead. Opponent fetches the untapped basic plains, and there we go. Saw that coming from a mile away. Hopefully I can do it again on my next turn while wastelanding as well. Probably don't get to wasteland there. And in fact, I think I'm not going to play it out. I now have 4 lands in hand. This does not bode well for me. These are pseudo spells. I expect this to be a basic forest, unless they need to cast Bowmasters. Seems like yes. Nope, just fetch for no reason. There's no... I don't know why Surveil lands aren't happening over there. There's a Knight of the Reliquary, which is a 4/4, which right now is destroyable via a Ganjo. I get my opponent to walk into that? Send in. 15. I need 3 mana to make that happen. So this is a little awkward. I think unlikely to work, but I'm willing to try. There's a Bayou. Oh shit, I think it's gonna work. Nice! Exactly 4 damage to a Knight of the Reliquary. Woo! There's an Endurance, which has to be played out now because of Voice of Victory. This was a card that I had played around previously. This stonewalls my offense for right now. So I will take out a land. I will take out a land that knocks my opponent off of a color. I'll throw down an Ocelot Pride. Now this is where I need to draw a Swords, a Path, a Skyclave Apparition, anything like that. And then I get to force a lot of damage. Oh, I do not believe that you are the beatdown in this situation. I will take that damage. Nice. Send it. I mobilize. Gain a little life back with Ocelot Pride. How am I doing on permanents? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. End of turn trigger. Stack Voice of Victory on bottom. Do the Ocelot Pride trigger. Achieve the City's Blessing. Keep these around. And I think keep Swords to remove Endurance. I don't need to remove something like this. It's not a real mana dork right now. And there's the concession. We had a landslide game in both directions. Rocking 11 removal spells. Do I want a couple Rest in Peace? I think I'll keep the Ajanis. Oof. That's not colored mana. That's an auto mulligan. This is fine. I think I get rid of Ocelot Pride here without the Guide of Souls to go with it. I think I would rather just be able to play 2 reasonable creatures that don't eat it to like first turn cycle Swords to Plowshares or Orcish Bowmasters. Land drop 2. Punished for not playing out Karakas. I'm going to accept that because I think it is more important to play around Wasteland. Plus, Thalia tends to be a card that is boarded out in this matchup. I don't even think I'm going to remove that in this turn cycle. I think I'm just going to play Voice of Victory, which also just walls Thalia. And if my opponent wants to remove Voice of Victory with their own Swords to Plowshares, it costs them 2 mana to do so. Okay, it's Prismatic Ending instead. Sure. That one's cute with the Thalia tax because you pay the one and then you use the Thalia tax to pay the second one. Yeah, I'm not removing the Thalia yet. I will just keep playing cards for the moment. So, this is symmetrical. No, it is not symmetrical. Well, the opponent's part. I think I am naming Swords, so Swords costs 4 mana. That's fine. Opponent fetches. I don't know if my opponent has Surveil lands, folks. They straight up might just not. That is a sorcery speed endurance. That is a flash creature. So, I think I am into bounce you, make my spells cheaper. Swords you, get you out of the way. Technically do this after attacks. Send in for 3. And I've got Skyclave for the next tap out threat that my opponent plays. There's another Verdant Catacombs. I'll know that they have that Cradle. Fetching. Thalia comes back down. There's a Keen-Eye Curator. And you can Wasteland my Caracas, so that's fine. Clarion Conqueror is neat. Means that I don't necessarily have to answer Keen-Eye Curator immediately. Does my opponent block and trade if I attack? I feel like the answer is no. I'm going to go ahead and just attack here. This is a way more valuable creature. This becomes a 7/7 very quickly. I'm wrong. Opponent trades. I will play out Clarion Conqueror. I don't really understand that block. There's a Noble Hierarch, which is fine. Not a Mana Dork right now. A Wasteland. I'll still Wasteland the Cradle. Alright, opponent doesn't float mana or anything there. They take the damage. I think I just hold Skyclave. I can Skyclave a Thalia. I don't really care about a Thalia, whereas I super care about something like a Knight of the Reliquary coming down. Oh, yeah. That card was not doing anything through the Thalia. I'm good with that. The Clarion Conqueror seems like the way better card. We're going to trade 3 damage back and forth. That favors me. I have the onboard creature and the next attack step here. Send in for 3. Down to 12. There's another flyer. Got an Endurance, you got a Bowmaster. That's another reason not to like Swords and Ocelot Pride, right? Like there are Bowmasters as draws that get to just stop that. Attacking into Endurance is weird here. I think it's just happening though. Yeah. Or the Plowshare, sure. And a Dork back online. Opponent to 10. I'm going to keep holding this for a better creature. I will play Ocelot Pride, even though it is super not mana efficient here. I did gain life from their swords. You get one. You get one. The Bowmaster is their last card. Would I like to just gain 3 life for this catch token? Nah, I can maybe trade it for a piece of an Orcish Bowmasters in a minute. I'll take that damage. Alright, there's a Knight of the Reliquary. We can eat that with Skyclave instead and be super happy with that. My opponent can play Bowmasters, though. That's okay. I will take out the Knight. I'm fine sending in. I'm fine sending in. So there's the Bowmasters. That gets to kill Ocelot Pride. They're trading the Bowmaster's body over the token. They don't expect me to draw any cards. A tapped Dryad Arbor. They can send in with their first striker, and that's fine. They have 0 cards. I get to crack back for 4. This seems fine. Yeah? Are you at chump block time yet for 2 life? You are not. One of these matters more. I think Voice of Victory going wide and letting me know that I'm not going to get ambushed by Endurance matters more. Okay. So Voice of Victory means that my opponent does not get to cast a spell. Let's see if there's any trick in your hand. I imagine the card in their hand is just a land. I will never get to know. Alright. We are on the board after a rocky start. We'll see if we can put up one more win and walk away with some play points. GG. I've kept my opening hand here. My opponent is on 6 cards. Basic Island into Tamiyo. I have interaction for this later. I'd like to draw any 1 or 2 drop to have something to do in the next turn cycle. But unfortunately, my opponent has untapped with a Tamiyo, so even if I remove the Tamiyo, it has already replaced itself. Okay, cool. That's not bad. I suspect that my opponent has a Daze, so let's just get this out of the way. They paused for a little while with Guide of Souls on the stack last turn, so I'm not expecting this to resolve. Yep. But we're doing that so I can deploy any one of these powerful cards next turn and hopefully resolve it. But Tamiyo is doing Tamiyo stuff. Which one am I doing here? I'm going to do the one that I care about being fatal pushed the least. So there's the Delta Fetch. There's a Swamp. Want to have a Force of Will here? This is sitting on the stack a long time. Oh, excuse me. Crack a Clue, and then I'm getting Force of Willed. Pitching a Baleful Strix, sure. And now, hopefully next turn, I actually do something that answers the Tamiyo. If I don't draw a land, Skyclave Apparition is my current plan. Tamiyo gets the third clue of the game. I did draw a land. Is Skyclave still the plan? I think I am fine with this being the plan. Skyclave doesn't answer some stuff like Murktide Regent later. And I think I'm not going to attack into open mana for Orcish Bowmasters here, which is like a little frustrating to miss points of damage, but it really feels like my opponent has flash options here. And I can probably get enough energy to do Guide of Soul things on my next turn. Trigger. Let's just always yield to those. Now I'll go ahead and send in yes to this. Opponent's taking that damage. There's an Orcish Bowmasters on the cat token. What's your starting loyalty, bud? Your starting loyalty is 3? And I think I say yes. And then let's see what other nonsense you've got going on here. Another land drop. Kaito's a thing. I think I'm going to go ahead and swords. The opponent is tapping a bunch of mana here and going for a Force of Negation. So it's probably another Orcish Bowmasters then. If I don't block the Orc army, this could become a 2 and the ping could kill it. So I think I go ahead and block the Orc army. Yeah, this is fine. I'm not losing the Ajani right now, which I think is what matters here. So land drop, see what's going on in your hand. Okay, it is a Kaito. We're going to name Kaito. Good job me for the Kaito call out last turn. Go ahead and 0 this, pick up another thing. And I think I'll just chill here. Protect this Planeswalker for a turn. And slightly longer term, I can make my opponent spend a bunch of resources trying to get rid of this and then drop Clarion Conqueror and brick Kaito. Alright, they drew a land for turn. So there is a Kaito, which still has the whole creature stat line thing. It was just a 6 mana creature. Alright, an Ancient Tomb on my end. I think I am into cat and energy here. Trigger, drop a Clarion Conqueror, go to combat, declare attackers. I think you can keep your 3/4. I think I'm just going face and face. Do I trade here? Nope, I think my opponent just conceded. Nope, lagging. Yes, they did concede. Okay, we overcame the Tamiyo. I have a harder time winning that one if I don't recognize what's going on with the Kaito thing. GG. So I am going to board some number of these cards. I think Suppression Field is going out. That's just going to become more removal spells for sure. I want to play like 2 of those maybe. There's going to be some amount of Murktide or Nether Goyfs or Barrow Goyfs that these are very good against. While I'm boarding these in, I could go Ajani's out. Archon is also a little slow here. Get rid of Archon on the draw. And I can futz with some things like Rest in Peace on Ajani later. This is fine. This can play a Clarion Conqueror on turn 2. And I guess I'm using turn 1 to just Caracas bounce Tamiyo and hoping that my opponent doesn't brainstorm on their turn after redeploying it. It would not be a crazy person thing to do to just Path to Exile Tamiyo there, which is very telling about Tamiyo's power level. That's a Wasteland. I'm going to get Wastelanded and my opponent's going to put me back in that same spot. Okay, I mean, this time around I probably have to Path Tamiyo, and it just sucks. This is resolving, and I imagine that there is a basic swamp for my opponent to get. Yes. And this whole process just makes my Wasteland that is in my hand significantly worse. There's a Baleful Strix. Sure. Underground Sea and Ponder. Ajani is a fine pickup. I'm going to play Voice of Victory here. I don't think it's worth Ancient Tombing it out to play around a daze there. That's a Petty Theft. Just a reasonable tempo play. There's the next Tamiyo. Sure. I think I need to play 2 cards in this turn cycle and Clarion Conqueror a little bit later. So there's the Voice of Victory. Now I know that my stuff resolves. And then I set up one of my answers to Tamiyo to be uncounterable. We also have this as an alternative answer to Tamiyo, but I don't think I can just pass my turn there with 4 mana up and have that be the best line. Opponent has Consigns. Both creatures coming in. They're flyers. I'm taking that. We have a Kaito. We do have a Kaito. I am at 14. Hopefully it just makes it to my turn and I get to stick Clarion Conqueror. That would be nice. Baleful Strix gets to come back down at a minimum. Oh, that also transforms Tamiyo. Thanks, I hate it. That doesn't get to happen again. I think I'm going to go ahead and poke Tamiyo for 1. I imagine this is not a reasonable trade for my opponent, and I am correct. So I know that my stuff resolves. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to stick 2 Clarion Conquerors this turn. And then next turn we'll start getting cute with this Aganjo. Ugh. And Murktide. Yikes. Okay. The good news here is that my opponent didn't attack. Bad news here is kind of everything else. My attacks aren't great. My life total is much lower than I would like it to be. Third ability or colorless spell doesn't get this. This is an activated ability. I think I'm going to make the Orcish Bowmasters more expensive right now. And I think I'm going to keep this. We're going to pass the turn and see what happens. These attacks could go a lot of different ways. So let's go ahead and block this Murktide Regent. See if we can go ahead and let that damage go through. And while it is still considered an attacking creature, we'll nuke it the rest of the way. All right, cool. Now I'm 1 removal spell away from those Planeswalkers being active, and that's real bad. Yep. Everything here sucks. The Death Toucher on the other side of the battlefield is not good for me. Yeah. I'm not naming your fetch anyway, but go off. So at this point, I probably just name Tamiyo, under the assumption that over the next couple of turns, maybe as early as next turn, I just start losing out on this Clarion Conqueror. My life total is 8. I took a lot from Ancient Tombs here. Okay, so this was done in a way where my opponent threw away a Tamiyo. So that's nice for me. I need every card that I can get right now. Misty comes down. I think I'm going to take this hit. I don't want to, but I think I'm going to take it. I would like to try to find removal. This attack isn't great, but these flyers are really rough. That is a Murktide Regent. I think this is now the point where my opponent overwhelms me. Like, this attack is good. This attack is good. Sending in with this as well is rough. Can't really play this. There's also the Bowmasters that my opponent can overpay for and send at my face for a final point of damage. I think I'm out here. So the kind of frustrating thing here is if I do the Rest in Peace, it's great against the stuff that looks like this, and then there's just so many other things that are very, very threatening that the Rest in Peace is not great against. Maybe I just need to. Maybe I need to just treat them as additional removal spells and make my early game slightly worse. But like every time I board in another Rest in Peace, it makes these cards worse and worse. So maybe I do this despite the Ocelot Pride weakness. This is a fine hand. I would really like to draw a non-ancient tomb hand. This is not my ideal set of cards, but I don't think this is worth mulliganing. It's just like being the Ocelot Pride Voice of Victory deck against the Tamiyo deck is such a terrible thing to do. Yeah, like, what am I doing with my life, you know? And only one of these things produces, well, I guess Voice of Victory produces power versus a Tamiyo technically. Not in a great way. Yep, obvious block is obvious. And we'll throw down a Voice of Victory. It resolves. Again, I would like more land. Like, being able to deploy 2 of my cards next turn is a really big deal. Oh, that is a good Wasteland. Like, in some timelines, I just eat a Wasteland on my land and a Brainstorm immediately. Not this time. Alright, we're going in. My opponent was going to Wasteland me. they would have done it already. I think they are committing to cracking a clue here. I will just accept that. So I'm hitting for 5. They're at 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If I go Ocelot Pride, I get 2 sets of triggers, and I'll have the city's blessing. What if I get Wastelanded? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I just play another Voice of Victory. Again, I don't want this Tamiyo to flip and then just like totally spin the game. So resolve Ocelot Pride. There's cracking the clue. There's the cat token. We're just short of the city's blessing. But I've got a pretty impressive board. We do not want to see Tamiyo attack into like a toxic deluge. That's now the thing that's problematic. So there's cracking a clue. See if there's a brainstorm. There's a fatal push. Sure. My stuff's uncounterable at this point. I think I just leave the Tamiyo. I think I'm just going to do something that's not a creature in case a Toxic Deluge type card comes about. I will still have something in play. Mobilize 2. Itcha. End step. Voice of Victory. Leaves play. Trigger on bottom. There's a whole bunch of friends. And I've still got Skyclave for something bad that happens. Alright, my opponent just was not able to flip that Tamiyo. And despite the Tamiyo being, a clue-producing card advantage machine, we did put a win on the board there. So that's a 2-3 finish. GG's. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. Overall thoughts on the deck list. I don't think you should be building legacy decks around Clarion Conqueror. That said, if you want to build a deck around Clarion Conqueror, this isn't the worst thing in the world. My biggest issue here is that it's not playing any cards that are crazy busted. We saw that when we were playing against these one-ring decks, even with this pile of Suppression Fields and Clarion Conquerors and like a pile of targeted hate cards, the raw power level of the decks that are playing the Tamiyos and the one-rings, I think that's just much higher than what we are seeing here. And this deck doesn't have a late game source of card advantage, and it would be perfect as a way to refuel after all of your resources are exhausted. That's right, it's the One Ring. But because you want to build a Clarion Conqueror deck, you don't get to be a One Ring deck. And I think it is just better to be playing the broken card than to be trying to stop the broken cards. Beyond that, I also think that Clarion Conqueror is better in Force of Will decks than non-Force of Will decks. I think that combination of being able to put this in play and then protect it on the stack is much stronger than having a pile of things that you can put into play. I think that like those Esper decks that can attack the hand and the stack and permanents in play with things like Meddling Mage and Clarion Conqueror all at the same time, I think those are going to be much more successful playing Clarion Conqueror than a dedicated white deck that is just trying to power it out consistently. And we did see some of the the awkwardness of the Ancient Tombs and Wastelands, meaning that we had to mulligan hands that otherwise had acceptable number of lands. I don't think this deck was perfectly constructed by any means. This was a pretty reasonable pile of cards that took a shot at hating on the meta, but I don't know that we were successful. If you've got any thoughts, throw them down in the comments below. And if you made it this far in the video, please consider leaving me a like or comment on the way out. Those sorts of things are going to help re-kickstart my algorithm as people get excited about Legacy again. All right. Have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya.